Magic Johnson and Larry Bird did not just give the NBA a rivalry, they gave it a rescue plan. Before they arrived, the league's reputation was shaky, TV ratings were soft, and the finals could be pushed to late-night tape delay because networks thought other shows were a better bet. Their head-to-head story, two stars, opposite coasts, opposite styles, became the simple hook that turned a niche product into a national TV habit. The 1979 NCAA title game between Bird's Indiana State and Magic's Michigan State was the pilot episode for that rescue. It became one of the most watched college basketball games ever at the time. Not because fans were obsessed with mid-major tactics, but because the narrative was so clean. Undefeated small school sharpshooter versus smiling floor general from a powerhouse. That one night proved that putting these two into the same frame could move numbers, and everyone who made money off sports took notice. When they entered the NBA together, Bird to the Celtics in the East, Magic to the Lakers in the West, it felt less like two rookies joining the league and more like a TV series getting picked up for a second season with a bigger budget. One represented blue-collar grit and trash talk backed by surgical shooting. The other represented fast-break joy and charisma that made every assist look like a magic trick. For casual viewers, that contrast stripped away complexity. You did not need to know every player in the league, you just had to choose a side. On the floor, the rivalry forced the game itself to evolve. Magic's Lakers popularized an extreme commitment to the fast break. Secure the rebound, run instantly, and turn every possession into a stampede. That style demanded versatile players who could dribble, pass, and finish at high speed, and it punished slower, physical teams that were built to grind in the half court. It also played beautifully on television because the ball rarely stopped and every possession had highlight potential. Bird's Celtics responded by weaponizing precision and versatility in the half court. Bird could handle the ball, pass like a guard, rebound like a big, and score from almost anywhere on the floor. That forced defenses to abandon old assumptions about forwards who simply posted up or crashed the glass. Boston leaned into smart spacing, back cuts, and quick reads to keep up with the track meet tempo of Los Angeles without turning into a copy. The result was a decade where top teams had to be both skilled and adaptable just to stay in the conversation. Their repeated clashes in the NBA Finals turned that evolution into a national spectacle. Celtics-Lakers in the 1980s was less a matchup and more a recurring event. Because they met in the finals multiple times, each series felt like another chapter in a story people already understood. East versus West, Boston versus LA, Bird versus Magic. That consistency gave networks something rare, an easy marketing pitch they could dust off every year, knowing audiences would show up. Off the court, the rivalry changed how the league managed its own image. At a time when the NBA was fighting narratives about drugs, violence, and financial instability, Bird and Magic became a clean, competitive, and reliable counterstory. They were intense, but professional. They were rivals, but clearly respected the game and the stakes. That combination made sponsors far more comfortable attaching their brands to the NBA, because the face of the product now looked like two stars dueling for titles, not chaos in the locker room. The league office and broadcasters learned quickly that selling Magic versus Bird was often more powerful than selling Celtics versus Lakers. Promos and features zoomed in on the players' personalities and styles as much as their team colors. That decision influenced how sports are marketed today. Show the star, frame the matchup as a personal duel, then zoom back out to the team context. A modern fan watching ads built around individual superstars is seeing a playbook that was refined in that era. Another key shift was in what fans and media valued on the floor. Before this rivalry, raw scoring totals often dominated star conversations. Bird and Magic dragged passing, vision, and all-around impact into the spotlight. Magic's no-look feeds and full-court pushes made assists feel like the main event, not just a line in the box score. Bird's quick reads, touch passes, and ability to turn tiny defensive mistakes into open shots for teammates made basketball IQ and anticipation part of how greatness was described. That emphasis changed how young players wanted to play. Kids trying to emulate stars were no longer just chasing fadeaway jumpers. They were practicing behind-the-back passes and reading where teammates would be 2 seconds later. Coaches, especially at high levels, had proof that unselfish pass-heavy offense could still produce titles and ratings. The modern obsession with ball movement, extra passes, and making the right play owes a lot to the standard those two set. The Bird Magic years also did heavy lifting for what the NBA would become globally. Once their rivalry pushed domestic ratings higher and made the finals a real cultural event, international broadcasters had a cleaner product to import. It is easier to sell a league overseas when you can say, here are two superstars, here are their teams, here is their history, and here here is why it matters. Rather than handing viewers a jumble of random games, that structure helped pave the runway for later global icons because the league was already used to telling star-driven stories. Inside the league, the way other players thought about careers and legacies changed. Watching Bird and Magic, it became clear that the ultimate measuring stick was not just statistics, but championships and performance on the biggest stage. Both of them treated every finals game like a referendum on who they were as competitors. Younger players coming into the league absorbed that mentality. That is part of why conversations about modern stars revolve so heavily around rings, finals appearances, and big game moments. Their unusual body types for their roles also pushed basketball strategy forward. Magic, a 6'9" player running the offense as a primary ball handler, broke the mold for what a point guard could be. Bird, a forward initiating offense and stretching the floor with shooting while also battling on the boards, blurred the lines between positions. Over time, that helped normalize the idea that a team's best playmaker might not be the shortest guy, and that a forward could easily be the hub of the offense. You can see the echo of that idea in today's positionless basketball. Lineups full of players who can dribble, pass, shoot, and switch on defense instead of rigid roles like traditional point guard or back-to-the-basket big. The Bird Magic template showed coaches that if you have elite decision-makers with size, you can run more creative offenses and create matchup problems all over the floor. Their rivalry also rewired fan culture, because they were constantly compared. Who was better? Whose titles meant more? Whose style was real basketball? They set the pattern for the endless debates that define NBA talk today. Every era since has recreated that structure with new names. Whether it is Jordan versus someone, Kobe versus someone, or LeBron versus someone, the arguments look like updated versions of Bird versus Magic, stats against stats, rings against rings, style against style. Finally, their impact reached into the next superstar era. By the time Michael Jordan was ready to take over, he walked into a league that had already been lifted out of the TV basement, given a global audience, and trained fans to follow long, star-driven sagas. Bird and Magic did the heavy narrative and business lifting that made it possible for the NBA to build around a single, transcendent figure in the 1990s without starting from scratch. Magic Johnson and Larry Bird didn't just change basketball. They accidentally invented the best buddy cop show sports TV ever had. Every time they shared a court, it felt less like a regular season game and more like a new episode. Same two leads, completely different plot, and the unspoken question hanging over everything: whose legend gets a little bigger tonight? Their rivalry formed in college, but the real shockwave hit once they landed in the NBA on perfect opposite coasts. Bird joined the Boston Celtics, a franchise soaked in history, cold weather, and hard hat basketball. Magic joined the Los Angeles Lakers, a team surrounded by palm trees, movie stars, and a franchise already linked to showmanship. That alignment took a simple basketball rivalry and turned it into a geography lesson for casual fans. East Coast grit against West Coast glamour, with the championship on the line almost every year. From the moment they arrived, they changed the product on the floor. Magic ran offense at 6'9" from the point guard spot, something that shattered traditional thinking about who was allowed to orchestrate. His game showed that a tall player could handle the ball, direct traffic, and weaponize vision instead of just camping near the basket. Bird, on the other side, played forward while functioning like a full-court problem set. He could shoot from deep, pass from anywhere, rebound in traffic, and punish defenders for even half steps out of position. Together, they made versatility more than a luxury. It became a requirement for teams that wanted to keep up. The clash of their styles forced coaches to evolve or get left behind. The Lakers leaned into Showtime, pushing the ball on every rebound, sprinting the wings, and turning fast breaks into a signature weapon. That required lineups filled with players who could run, catch, and finish at high speed while reading where the ball would go next. The Celtics countered with precision, controlled tempo, brutally efficient half-court sets, and constant movement off the ball to create passing angles for Bird. The chess match between track meet pace and surgical execution pushed the league toward the kind of dynamic, multi-layered offenses that are standard today. As their teams started colliding deep in the playoffs, especially in the NBA Finals, they changed how people watch the sport. Instead of the championship being just another listing on a TV schedule, Celtics versus Lakers with Bird vs. Magic turned into a national event. Viewers who couldn't name more than 3 NBA players still knew those two, their jerseys, and what it meant when they met in June. Ratings climbed, networks gave the league better time slots, and the finals began to feel like a cultural gathering instead of a niche broadcast. That attention carried real financial consequences for the NBA. Better ratings meant advertisers paid more, which meant more money for teams and players, and more incentive for the league to invest in production quality and storytelling. Bird and Magic essentially proved that if you wrap a league around a clear, compelling rivalry, you can drag it from late-night tape delay into primetime relevance. Once that proof existed, the NBA kept repeating the formula with new stars. Their rivalry also reshaped what fans and media considered star behavior on the court. Before this era, big scoring outbursts tended to dominate the conversation. Bird and Magic made passing, decision-making, and lifting teammates part of the headline. Magic's no-look assists and full-court pushes turned the simple act of sharing the ball into a spectacle. Bird's anticipation and ability to create easy shots for others from awkward angles showed that reading the game 2 steps ahead was just as destructive as pure athleticism. Modern appreciation for playmaking, vision, and basketball IQ sits on the foundation they laid. Positionally, they bent the sport toward what is now called positionless basketball. Magic showed that the offense could run through a giant guard who rebounds like a forward and posts up smaller defenders without giving up control of the ball. Bird showed that a forward could legitimately handle, initiate sets, stretch the floor, and still do all the dirty work on the boards. Over time, teams stopped thinking in terms of rigid jobs. One small guard, one pure post, 3 role players, and started chasing multi-tool players who could blur those lines the same way Bird and Magic had. Beyond tactics, their rivalry reprogrammed basketball's culture of legacy and comparison. Because they came into prominence at the same time, played for storied franchises, and met repeatedly with championships at stake, fans and media were constantly stacking them against each other. Who was better? Whose titles meant more? Whose style was the right way to play? That constant side-by-side evaluation baked an expectation into the sport. Every great player would be measured not just in isolation, but against a direct rival across the bracket. You can see that dynamic in every modern debate. Jordan against his era's challengers, Kobe and Shaq, LeBron and whoever stands opposite him. The structure of those arguments, the obsession with rings and head-to-head records, is a direct descendant of the Bird Magic conversation. Their rivalry taught fans to treat NBA history as a series of overlapping duels, each one shaping how greatness is defined. Their impact also set the stage for what came next. By the late 1980s, thanks heavily to those Celtics-Lakers wars, the NBA had become a reliable TV product with a growing global audience. When Michael Jordan rose into superstardom, he stepped into a league that already knew how to sell a face, already had international interest, and already had fans trained to care deeply about individual legacies and championships. Bird and Magic lifted the league to that platform, and Jordan used it to jump even higher. Even now, their fingerprints are all over the modern game. Big playmaking forwards and jumbo guards echo Magic's blueprint. Stretch forwards who facilitate offense and hunt mismatches from the perimeter echo Bird's. Teams that prioritize pace, spacing, and quick decisions are basically updating the playbook those 1980s Lakers and Celtics were writing in front of a TV audience that was learning to love basketball in real time. And for fans, every time a new rivalry pops up, 2 young stars on opposite coasts meeting in the playoffs with contrasting styles and narratives, it feels familiar for a reason. It's another version of the same story. 2 players, 1 league, and a rivalry powerful enough to shift how the entire sport looks, feels, and measures itself. 2 guys, 1 era, and a rivalry that basically rebuilt the NBA from the ground up. Hard to top that. If you're into stories where pride, pettiness, and pure greatness collide, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So if you want more of the nastiest rivalries, wildest controversies, and all-time great sports feuds broken down just like this, hit like, tap subscribe, and stick around, because the next grudge match might be even crazier than Bird versus Magic.